I own this house, he snarled. Then his fist connected with my ribs just because I'd touched his rusty toolbox. But the basement he'd always forbidden me from entering held all his secrets, and tonight, that door would slam shut in more ways than one. After years of his control, his violence, his declarations of ownership over what was never truly his, I'd discovered something in those shadows beneath our feet, something that would flip every power dynamic he'd built. The basement door was about to become his cage, not mine. My name is Harper Quinn, and I'd just finished signing the refinancing papers that made this A-frame house in Riverton truly mine, though I kept that detail buried deep from my family. The afternoon sun slanted through the kitchen windows, catching dust motes that danced above the scarred hardwood floors I'd been meaning to refinish. Maddie was upstairs, humming along to some cartoon, her 6-year-old voice carrying through the thin walls like birdsong. Then I heard the unmistakable scrape of a key that shouldn't work anymore. Ron stood in my doorway, jingling his old keychain like he owned the place, which, in his mind, he still did. "Just checking on my investment," he said, that familiar edge creeping into his voice. The smell of motor oil and stale cigarettes followed him inside, the same toxic cloud that had poisoned this house for years. "Ron, you need to call before coming over," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the familiar knot forming in my stomach. "This is my home now." He laughed that harsh bark that used to make me flinch as a teenager. "Your home I co-signed the original loan when you couldn't get approved on your own. I own this house as much as you do. More, even. The refinancing documents upstairs in my locked filing cabinet said otherwise, but I wasn't ready to play that card yet." I moved toward the basement door, needing to clear a path to check the water heater that had been making concerning noises. Ron's old toolbox sat at the top of the stairs, a rusted metal monument to all the projects he'd started and abandoned over the years. I reached for the handle to move it aside. The impact came fast, his fist driving into my ribs, sending me stumbling against the wall. The second shove was harder, calculated, sending me tumbling down 3 steps before I caught myself on the railing. My hip screamed where it hit the edge of the stair. "Don't touch my tools." Ron's face was red, spittle flying as he loomed above me on the landing. "You think because you make your little dental assistant salary you can disrespect me? Everything in this house exists because of me. The roof over your ungrateful head, the Mommy." Maddie's terrified voice cut through his rant. She stood at the top of the stairs, clutching her stuffed rabbit, eyes wide with the kind of fear no child should know. "Go back to your room, sweetheart," I managed, pulling myself up despite the sharp pain in my side. "Everything's okay." Ron straightened his shirt. That practiced shift I'd seen 1,000 times from monster to respectable man in seconds. "Your mother will be hearing about your attitude," he said, already reaching for his phone. "Vivian won't be happy about you keeping her granddaughter in this dump without proper supervision." After he left, after I'd triple-checked the locks and held Maddie until she stopped shaking, I made 3 decisions. First, I called a locksmith every lock would be changed by morning. Second, I ordered security cameras, especially for the basement he seemed so possessive about. And third, I opened a new document on my laptop and typed Incident Log, Day 1. The basement door stood open behind me, exhaling cold air that smelled of concrete and secrets. Tomorrow, I'd find out exactly what Ron was so desperate to protect down there. But tonight, I held my daughter close and started planning the end of his reign over this house, over our lives. Because Ron was right about one thing: someone definitely owned this house. He just had the wrong name on the deed. The pattern had always been there, written in the ledger of my childhood like a balance sheet that never added up in my favor. Cole got a car for his 18th birthday, a used Camaro that Ron spent $3,000 on, so the boy can get to trade school. When my transmission died that same year, I had to beg for a $900 loan, which came with a payment plan and lectures about responsibility. Every Friday, Ron would text "payment due." I never missed one. Sitting in my therapist's office 3 weeks after the toolbox incident, I finally had a name for it. Parentification. Dr. Martinez, a soft-spoken woman with knowing eyes, had laid it out clearly. You were the responsible one, the one who had to earn everything while your brother was given freely. Your mother enabled this dynamic by never protecting you from it. Cole's graduation party is next month, I told her, pulling up the latest text from Vivian on my phone. They want $2,400 from me. For a party. For my brother who hasn't held a job longer than 3 months. Dr. Martinez leaned forward. And what do you want to do about that? What I wanted was to scream. What I did was strategize. The memories kept surfacing, each one a small betrayal crystallizing into pattern. Maddie's 4th birthday when they promised to come, then called an hour after the party started to say Cole needed them to help him move. Again. Her 5th birthday when they showed up 2 hours late, reeking of wine from the small celebration they'd had for Cole, landing another job he'd quit within weeks. This year, they hadn't even bothered with an excuse, but they never forgot to ask for money. I'd started keeping a spreadsheet 6 months ago. The numbers were staggering. $8,000 over 2 years, not counting the loans from before I started tracking. Always for Cole, always urgent, always with the underlying threat that family helps family, except when that family was me. The first glimpse of daylight came through an unexpected source, Nora Blake, a real estate attorney I'd met at the clinic when she came in for a crown. We'd chatted while she waited, and when I mentioned my housing situation, she'd given me her card. Your stepfather has no claim if he's not on the deed. She'd explained a month ago, reviewing my documents in her downtown office. And if you refinance in your name alone, with your current income and credit score, you can remove any last traces of his involvement. He'll lose his mind, I'd said. That's his problem, not yours. This is about legal ownership, not his feelings. The refinancing had closed a month ago. The papers were filed with the county. The house on Maple Street, the one Ron claimed as his kingdom, was legally and entirely mine. Every payment I'd made while he and Vivian funneled money to Cole. Every sacrifice. Every time I'd gone without so Maddie could have what she needed. It had all led to this moment of quiet victory. I thought about all this as I sat at my kitchen table, Vivian's latest text glowing on my screen. Need your share for Cole's party by Friday. $2,400. Family supports? Family? Harper? My fingers moved across my phone screen, opening my banking app. I scheduled a payment $1, with the memo line reading, Best wishes for Cole. Then I opened my laptop and added another entry to my incident log, documenting the financial manipulation, the pattern of extraction, the years of imbalance. Dr. Martinez had taught me about boundaries. Nora Blake had given me legal clarity. But it was Maddie, playing quietly in the next room, who gave me the strength to enforce both. The text from Ron came at 10:15 that night. Your mother is very disappointed. I'll be there tomorrow at noon to discuss your selfishness. I smiled, actually smiled, as I forwarded the threat to Nora and added it to my evidence file. Tomorrow at noon. Ron would discover that his key no longer worked, that his name held no power here, and that the basement door he'd been so protective of now belonged solely to me. Family supports family, Vivian had said. But first, I had to protect the only family that truly mattered, my daughter and myself. The $1 payment hit Vivian's account at 7:30 m.o. By 7:45, my phone was exploding. Mom, what is this supposed to mean? Mom, Harper, this is unacceptable. Mom, Ron is furious. Cole, really $1 grow up. Unknown number, obviously Ron's burner. Little girl playing games, noon, be ready. I screenshot everything, uploaded it to my cloud drive, and texted Jenna Park, my colleague and the closest thing I had to a sister. Can you take Maddie for a playdate? Things might get ugly here. On my way, she replied immediately. Document everything. While Maddie packed her overnight bag, chattering excitedly about movies and popcorn at Aunt Jenna's, I worked methodically through my checklist. The locksmith had installed new deadbolts yesterday, commercial grade, pick-resistant, with keys that couldn't be duplicated without authorization. The security cameras were operational, their feeds backing up to the cloud every 30 seconds. The basement door now had its own special edition, a 120 decibel alarm that would trigger if opened without the proper code. I pulled out my phone and started a new voice memo. March 15th, 11:45 a.m., preparing for confrontation with Ron Mercer, who has threatened to arrive at noon despite being informed he is not welcome. All locks have been changed. Security measures in place. The documents were arranged on my dining room table like evidence in a court case. The new deed, solely in my name. The refinancing papers, showing Ron's complete removal from any financial obligation or benefit. The printout of state law regarding property ownership and trespassing. 3 years of bank statements showing every payment I'd made alone. Photos of the bruises from 2 weeks ago. Purple-green shadows across my ribs that told their own story. Jenna arrived at 11:50, taking one look at my face and pulling me into a hug. "You've got this," she whispered. "And if you need backup, I'm 5 minutes away." After they left, I positioned myself strategically. Camera angles checked, phone recording. The chain lock engaged on the front door. It would let the door open 3 inches, enough to talk, not enough for forced entry. I'd learned that lesson the hard way. At exactly noon, the sound came Ron's key grinding uselessly in the new lock, then harder, metal scraping against metal as he tried to force it. The doorbell rang once, twice, then continuously as he leaned on it. "Open this door, Harper." His voice carried down the street. "Good. Let the neighbors hear." I opened it to the length of the chain. "You're not welcome here." "Ron." His face was already red, that vein on his forehead that appeared before explosions. Behind him, I could see Vivian in the passenger seat of his truck, and Cole slouching against the cab, both there for the show. "Your little stunt with the dollar, you think you're clever." He pressed against the door, testing the chain. "This is my house. I saved you when no bank would touch you." I held up the refinancing papers, keeping them just out of his reach. "According to the county recorder's office, this house belongs to Harper Quinn. Only Harper Quinn. You were removed from all documents as of February 10th. The silence was beautiful. His mouth opened, closed, opened again like a fish gasping for air. "You conniving little..." He slammed his palm against the doorframe. "We'll see what the police think about you keeping my granddaughter locked up in there. Probably got drugs. Dangerous conditions." "Please do call them," I said calmly, holding up my phone showing it was recording. "I have extensive documentation of your assault 2 weeks ago, including medical records and photographs. I also have 3 years of evidence showing financial exploitation and harassment." Vivian had gotten out of the truck now, marching up the walkway in her house slippers. "Harper Marie, you open this door right now. I am your mother, and Ron is your husband, not my father, and definitely not the owner of my house." I kept my voice steady, professional. "You're all trespassing. I'm asking you to leave. This is being recorded." Ron pulled out his phone, jabbing at it with thick fingers. "We'll see what the cops say when I tell them you're holding my tools hostage in that basement. Those are valuable trade tools, probably worth thousands." "The basement you assault me for approaching that basement." I pulled up the photos on my phone, visible through the gap. "These bruises are from you, Ron, 2 weeks ago, because I touched a rusty toolbox." Cole finally wandered over, hands in his pockets. "Just give him his stuff." "Harper, why do you always have to make everything difficult?" "I'm not making anything difficult. I'm establishing boundaries. If Ron wants to retrieve any property he believes is his, he can provide proof of ownership and arrange a supervised pickup through the police department." Ron's face went from red to purple. "I'm calling them right now. Child endangerment, elder abuse, theft." "Please do," I said again. "Ask for Officer Patrice Hale. She's already familiar with the situation from the domestic violence report I filed." That stopped him cold. As I watched him dial, I thought about the basement, about what those cameras had already caught him trying to do in the dark, about the secrets I'd soon uncover behind that locked door. But for now, this was enough standing my ground, chain lock holding firm, the law on my side for once. The sirens would arrive soon, and this time, I wouldn't be the one explaining myself. The Riverton Police Department cruiser pulled up at 12:23 p.m., and I recognized Officer Patrice Hale, immediately the same officer who'd taken my report 2 weeks ago. She stepped out, adjusting her body camera, her partner Officer Davies following. Ron was already striding toward them, arms gesturing wildly. "Officers, my daughter here is keeping my granddaughter in dangerous conditions and stealing my property." Ron's performance was Oscar-worthy, the concerned grandfather instead of the man who'd shoved me downstairs. Officer Hale's expression didn't change. "Sir, please step back. We'll speak to everyone separately." She looked toward me, still behind my chain lock. "Ms. Quinn, are you all right?" "Yes, officer. I have documentation ready if you need it." Ron's voice boomed across the yard. "She changed the locks on my house I co-signed for this property." "Sir, do you currently live here?" Officer Davies interrupted. "Well, no. But, is your name currently on the deed?" Ron's jaw clenched. "I helped buy this place. My tools, my equipment, everything's in that basement. I have the current deed right here," I called out, holding up the certified copy. "Ronald Mercer hasn't been on any ownership document since February 10th. I refinanced independently." Officer Hale approached my door while Davies kept Ron at a distance. I handed her the deed, the refinancing papers, and a printed copy of the trespassing laws I'd highlighted. She reviewed them, nodding slowly. "Ma'am, can you explain what happened today?" I kept my voice calm, factual. "Mr. Mercer arrived uninvited after sending threatening messages last night and this morning. He attempted to enter with an old key, which no longer works since I changed the locks for safety reasons after he assaulted me 2 weeks ago. You have that report. When the key didn't work, he began pounding on the door and making threats about calling CPS and claiming false child endangerment." Vivian had moved closer, her voice shrill. "This is a family matter. Harper's being vindictive because we asked her to contribute to her brother's graduation party." "Ma'am, please remain by the vehicle," Officer Davies instructed. Officer Hale turned back to me. "The property documentation appears to be in order. Mr. Mercer has no legal right to enter without your permission." She raised her voice so Ron could hear. "Sir, you need to understand that Ms. Quinn is the sole legal owner of this property. Your previous co-signing of a loan that has since been refinanced gives you no current claim." "But my tools," Ron started. "If you believe you have property inside, you'll need to provide proof of ownership and arrange retrieval through proper channels. You cannot force entry or continue to harass Ms. Quinn." Ron's face was nearly purple now. "This is bullshit. She's keeping my granddaughter in there who knows what conditions." Officer Hale's expression hardened. "Sir, making false reports to CPS is a crime. If you have genuine concerns, file through proper channels. But I see no evidence of child endangerment. What I do see is a pattern of harassment against Ms. Quinn." I decided to play another card. "Officer, I have security footage from the past week showing Mr. Mercer attempting to enter my property without permission multiple times, particularly trying to access my basement door." Ron went very still. "I'd like to review that footage," Officer Hale said. "Mr. Mercer, you're being formally warned. You are not to return to this property without explicit written permission from Ms. Quinn. You are not to contact her except through legal counsel if necessary. Any violation will result in arrest for trespassing and potentially violation of a protective order if Ms. Quinn chooses to file one." "This is insane!" Vivian shrieked. "Harper, how can you do this to family?" Cole finally spoke up, his entitled drawl cutting through the tension. "Just get your stuff and let's go. Dad." "She's not worth it." "Dad. Not Ron. Not stepfather. Dad." Cole had started calling him that the year he got his car, the year I was told to be grateful for scraps. Officer Hale handed me back my documents and her card. "Ms. Quinn, I'm documenting this incident. If they return or continue harassment, call immediately. You might consider filing for a restraining order given the pattern of behavior. She assaulted me, Ron suddenly claimed. 2 weeks ago, she pushed me. Sir, I have the medical records and photographs showing Ms. Quinn's injuries from that date. Officer Hale cut him off. Would you like to revise your statement? Ron's mouth snapped shut as the officers prepared to leave, ensuring Ron's family returned to their vehicle. Officer Hale paused at my door. Change your phone number if you can, she said quietly. And those cameras were a smart move. Keep recording everything. I watched from my window as Ron's truck peeled away. Vivian's face twisted with rage in the passenger window. Cole texting in the back, completely unbothered by the drama he'd helped create. The street returned to its quiet Saturday afternoon peace. But I knew this wasn't over. I locked the door all 3 locks and went to my laptop. The security footage was already uploaded, showing Ron's midnight attempts at the basement door, his frustrated kicks when the lock wouldn't budge, the way he'd tried to jimmy the window. Time to call Val Reyes, the family lawyer Nora had recommended. The restraining order would be filed by Monday. But first, I needed to figure out what Ron was so desperate to hide in that basement. The cameras had caught him trying to get in every night this week. Whatever was down there, it was important enough to risk arrest for, and that meant it was my leverage. The call from Lakeford County Child Protective Services came Monday morning at 9:15, just as I was getting Maddie ready for school. The woman's voice was professionally neutral, but I could hear the weight of routine in it. Ms. Quinn, this is Sandra Whitfield from CPS. We've received a concerning report about the welfare of your daughter. We'll need to conduct a home visit within 48 hours. My hands didn't shake anymore. I'd been expecting this. Of course, I'm available this afternoon after 3:30, or any time tomorrow. Tomorrow at 10 would work. Can you have your daughter present? She'll be at school, Riverton Early Academy, but I can provide all her records, and you're welcome to verify her attendance and speak with her teachers. After ending the call, I texted Val Reyes immediately. CPS called, anonymous report, visit tomorrow, 10 a.m. Her response was swift. Document everything. I'll file the RO papers this afternoon with this added harassment. I moved with cold efficiency. The anger crystallized into purpose. First, I called Riverton Early Academy, alerting them to the situation and requesting a written statement about Maddie's attendance, academic progress, and overall well-being. The director, Mrs. Patterson, was furious on my behalf. That sweet girl is thriving here, she said. I'll have a full report ready within the hour. Next, I compiled what I called my Good Mother file, a binder I'd started after Ron's first threat. Medical records showing every checkup, every vaccination, dental records from my own workplace showing Maddie's perfect preventative care routine, photos from the past year birthday parties, zoo trips, art projects covering our refrigerator, her reading achievement certificate from school, the pantry stocked with healthy food, her room with its purple walls she'd chosen herself, the bookshelf overflowing with age-appropriate stories we read together every night. Jenna came by that evening, finding me organizing paperwork at the kitchen table while Maddie played in the living room. Anonymous report, I said, showing her the CPS notice. Want to guess who Anonymous is? The same concerned grandfather who bruised your ribs. Jenna's disgust was palpable. This is witness intimidation. Will you write a statement as someone who sees us regularly? Already started, she said, pulling out her phone to show me a draft. I also got 3 other neighbors to agree. Mrs. Yamamoto next door is particularly angry she heard Ron screaming on Saturday. Tuesday at 10 a.m. sharp. Sandra Whitfield arrived, a tired-looking woman in her 50s with kind eyes that had seen too much. Her partner, a younger man named Derek, carried a tablet for notes. Ms. Quinn, I want to be up front, Sandra said as I invited them in. The report claimed drug use, neglect, and dangerous living conditions. We're obligated to investigate all reports. I understand, I said, gesturing to the pristine living room where Maddie's drawings decorated one wall in frames I'd bought specifically to display her art. Would you like to start with a tour? They examined everything: the locks on cleaning supplies, the stocked refrigerator, Maddie's room with its overflowing toy chest and organized closet. Sandra noted the educational posters, the reading chart, the routine schedule posted by Maddie's desk. Derek photographed the smoke detectors, the carbon monoxide detector, the first aid kit mounted in the hallway. "The basement?" Derek asked. "Of course." I led them down, explained the new lock. "I installed this after my stepfather, Ron Mercer, assaulted me for trying to move his belongings. He's been attempting to break in at night." I showed them the camera footage on my phone. "This is why I have security measures." Sandra and Derek exchanged glances. Back upstairs, I presented my binder. Here's everything: medical records, school records, character references from neighbors, my employment verification, bank statements showing financial stability." I paused. "And here's the police report from Ron's assault, the documentation of his trespassing on Saturday, and the restraining order petition filed yesterday." Sandra reviewed everything methodically. "Ms. Quinn." The anonymous caller identified himself as the child's grandfather. My laugh was bitter. "Ron Mercer is not Maddie's grandfather. He's my mother's husband, no biological relation to either of us. Maddie's biological father terminated his rights when she was 6 months old. Ron has no legal standing whatsoever. He claimed you were preventing him from seeing his granddaughter." "I'm preventing him from entering my house after he assaulted me. There's a significant difference." Derek looked up from his tablet. "The home is exemplary. Sandra, the child's room shows clear evidence of engagement and care. No signs of neglect or danger." Sandra nodded, closing my binder. "Ms. Quinn, I'm marking this report as unfounded and malicious. I'm also recommending it be flagged as harassment given the concurrent restraining order petition." She met my eyes. "If he files another false report, he could face criminal charges." "Thank you," I managed, my throat tight with relief and rage. As they prepared to leave, Sandra paused. "Your lawyer should know that false CPS reports in retaliation for domestic violence charges are considered an aggravating factor in restraining order hearings." After they left, I sat on my couch and allowed myself 5 minutes of shaking. Then I called Val Reyes. "Unfounded and flagged as malicious." I reported. "Perfect. The hearing is Thursday at 2. This just strengthened our case significantly." I hung up and looked at the basement door. Tonight, after Maddie was asleep, I would finally investigate what Ron was so desperate to protect down there. The cameras had caught him trying again last night at 2:43 a.m., fumbling with tools at the lock before giving up. Whatever was hidden in my basement, it was about to become my insurance policy. The basement footage was becoming my nightly horror show. Tuesday at 11:47 p.m. Ron's shadow at the window. Wednesday at 1:13 a.m. The sound of metal on metal as he tried to jimmy the lock. Wednesday at 3:20 a.m. Him actually attempting to remove the entire doorknob with a cordless drill before a neighbor's dog started barking. But it was Thursday's footage, captured at 2:33 a.m. That made my blood run cold. Ron wasn't alone. Another figure joined him, someone in a baseball cap who knew exactly where my cameras were, actively avoiding them while Ron worked on the door. After Maddie fell asleep Thursday night, I finally descended into the basement with my phone recording, a flashlight, and latex gloves from work. The familiar smell of concrete and old wood filled my nostrils. But there was something else: machine oil, rust, and something chemical I couldn't identify. Ron's tool collection dominated one wall, but as I examined it closely, inconsistencies jumped out. A pneumatic nail gun still bearing a Mercer Homeworks inventory tag, a commercial-grade tile saw with the serial number scratched off, but the company logo still visible. 3 identical DeWalt drill sets. Why would one man need 3? I moved deeper, using my flashlight to illuminate corners the single bulb couldn't reach. Behind the wooden shelving unit, I noticed something odd. The concrete wall had a seam. I pushed against the shelf, and it moved too easily, like it was on hidden casters. Behind it was a makeshift hiding space. and what I found there made my hands shake as I documented everything with my phone. Receipts from Easy Pawn, dozens of them, all bearing Ron's signature. Each one matched a tool from the collection: Milwaukee Impact Driver, $400, Bosch Laser Level, $350, Festool Sander, $750. The dates went back 2 years, a steady stream of transactions. But these weren't his tools to pawn. Every item had originally belonged to Mercer Homeworks, his brother's construction company where Ron worked as a foreman. Deeper in the cache were more damning documents, inventory reports with items marked as lost on job site or stolen from truck, insurance claim forms filed by the company, and worst of all, Ron's own handwritten notes tracking which items he'd sold and when, like he was keeping books on his theft operation. I photographed everything, my camera flash illuminating each damning piece of evidence. Then I found the crown jewel, a blank Mercer Homeworks purchase order pad, and a receipt book, both reported stolen in a truck break-in 6 months ago, according to one of the insurance forms. Ron had been writing fake receipts to make the stolen tools appear legitimately purchased if anyone questioned him. My phone buzzed a motion alert from the driveway camera. At 11:58 p.m., Ron's truck was creeping up my driveway with its lights off. I quickly but carefully returned everything to its hiding place, pushed the shelf back, and ran upstairs, my heart hammering. I made it to my bedroom window in time to see Ron approaching with a large duffel bag. He was coming to remove evidence. Through my bedroom camera app, I watched him try the basement door again, more frantically this time, actually kicking it when it wouldn't budge. I called 911, whispering to the dispatcher, "Someone's trying to break into my basement. I have a restraining order pending against him, Ron Mercer. He's violating the police warning from Saturday." While waiting for police, I uploaded all the basement photos to 3 different cloud services and emailed them to Val Reyes with the subject line, "Urgent, criminal evidence found." The police arrived in 6 minutes, catching Ron red-handed with lockpicks in the basement door. Officer Hale was on duty again, and her face was grim as she put Ron in handcuffs. "Mr. Mercer, you were explicitly warned not to return to this property." "I just needed my tools," Ron shouted, struggling against the cuffs. "She's keeping stolen property." "Interesting choice of words," I said from my doorway, holding up my phone. "Officers, I've discovered evidence in my basement that Mr. Mercer has been stealing tools from his employer and selling them. I have photographs of pawn receipts, falsified purchase orders, and his own written records of the thefts." Ron went completely still, his face draining of color. Officer Hale looked between us. "Ma'am, we'll need you to come to the station tomorrow to make a full statement. Mr. Mercer, you're under arrest for attempted breaking and entering, violation of a police order, and suspected grand theft." As they led Ron away, he turned back, his eyes wild. "You don't know who you're messing with." "No, Ron," I said quietly. "You never knew who you were messing with." I spent the rest of the night installing a digital lock on the basement door, one that would automatically lock from the outside whenever opened from within. With a 15-second delay and an override only I knew. I tested it 3 times, listening to the satisfying click of electromagnetic bolts sliding home. The restraining order hearing was in 12 hours. But now I had more than just protection to seek. I had leverage that would destroy Ron's world just as he'd tried to destroy mine. The basement he'd beaten me for approaching had become his confession chamber, and I held all the evidence. Tomorrow, the trap would be set. Tonight. I backed up everything one more time and finally allowed myself a small, sharp smile. The basement door would indeed slam shut, just not in the way Ron expected. The courtroom at 2 p.m. Friday afternoon was smaller than I'd expected, with wood paneling that had seen better decades and fluorescent lights that hummed like angry wasps. I sat with Val Reyes at the petitioner's table, my evidence binder laid out like a weapon. Across from us, Ron sat with his public defender. His arrest the night before had clearly caught him off guard, and he'd made bail just 3 hours ago. Judge Patricia Thornton, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, reviewed the restraining order petition while the court reporter's fingers flew across her keys. "Ms. Reyes, present your case," the judge instructed. Val stood, her voice clear and professional. Your Honor, we're seeking a 4-year restraining order based on a pattern of escalating violence, harassment, and intimidation. I'd like to present evidence chronologically." She walked the judge through everything: the assault over the toolbox, the photographs of my bruises, the police reports from Saturday's trespassing incident, the false CPS report designed to intimidate and harass, and last night's arrest for attempted breaking and entering. "Your Honor," Val continued, "the respondent was explicitly warned by police not to return to my client's property. Within 5 days, he was caught with lockpicks attempting to break into her basement at midnight. Ron's defender, a tired-looking man named Phillips, tried to interject. Your Honor, Mr. Mercer was simply trying to retrieve his personal tools. At midnight with lockpicks after being formally warned by police." Judge Thornton's eyebrows rose. "Continue, Ms. Reyes." Val pulled out the pawn receipts I'd photographed. "Shh, Your Honor, those tools Mr. Mercer is so desperate to retrieve. They're stolen property from his employer, Mercer Homeworks. My client discovered evidence of a 2-year theft and fraud scheme hidden in her basement." Ron shot to his feet. "That's a lie. Those are my tools." "Sit down, Mr. Mercer," Judge Thornton commanded. "You'll have your opportunity to respond." Val presented everything methodically: the inventory reports, the insurance claims, Ron's handwritten theft records. "Mr. Mercer has been using my client's basement as a storage facility for stolen goods, which explains his violent reaction when she approached the area and his desperate attempts to regain access." When Phillips stood to defend Ron, his arguments fell flat. Those documents could belong to anyone. With Mr. Mercer's handwriting, his signature on dozens of pawn receipts. Judge Thornton was reviewing the evidence photos on the court's tablet. "Mr. Phillips, does your client deny this is his signature?" Ron whispered furiously to his lawyer, who reluctantly said, "We don't deny the signatures, but context." "The context," Val interrupted, "is that Mr. Mercer assaulted my client for approaching evidence of his criminal activity, then escalated his harassment when she changed the locks to protect herself and her 6-year-old daughter." Judge Thornton looked directly at Ron. "Mr. Mercer, you filed a false CPS report against a mother protecting her child from your violence. You attempted to break into her home after being warned. These are not the actions of someone seeking legitimate property return. These are the actions of someone desperate to hide criminal behavior." "Your Honor," I said, standing when Val nodded to me. "May I add something?" "Go ahead, Ms. Quinn. Ron said something when he was arrested. You don't know who you're messing with." "That was a threat, Your Honor. Even caught committing crimes, even in handcuffs, he was still trying to intimidate me. I have a 6-year-old daughter who's now afraid of her own home. She asks me every night if the angry man is coming back. No child should live in fear because of an adult's criminal choices and violence." Vivian, sitting in the gallery, let out a strangled sound. Cole, beside her, was finally paying attention, his phone forgotten as the reality of Ron's crimes sank in. Judge Thornton rendered her decision swiftly. "I'm granting a 4-year restraining order. Mr. Mercer, you are prohibited from coming within 500 feet of Ms. Quinn, her daughter, her home, or her workplace. Any violation will result in immediate arrest and prosecution." "But the tools," Phillips started, "are evidence in what appears to be a grand theft case." Judge Thornton cut him off. "I'm forwarding all documentation to the district attorney's office for criminal prosecution. Mr. Mercer, if any property in that basement legitimately belongs to you, which I highly doubt you can request its return through the criminal court after the investigation concludes." She turned to me. "Ms. Quinn, you've shown remarkable restraint and intelligence in handling this situation. The court commends your thorough documentation and your prioritization of your child's safety." As we left the courtroom, Ron's voice followed us. "This isn't over." Judge Thornton's gavel came down hard. "Mr. Mercer, that sounded like a threat. Would you like me to amend the order to include potential jail time for any violation? Ron's lawyer grabbed his arm, pulling him back, whispering urgently. Outside the courthouse, Val smiled. The criminal investigation will take months. The DA will want to interview you about the evidence. Ron's looking at felony theft charges, fraud, and now witness intimidation if he contacts you again. That night, I reviewed the new security footage. At 10:43 p.m., a familiar truck drove slowly past my house. It didn't stop. The restraining order was already in effect, but I could see Ron in the passenger seat, Vivian driving, staring at the house he'd claimed to own. I sent the footage to Val and the police, then went to my laptop. The basement door's new digital lock system showed all green lights on my security app. The trap was armed and ready. A text came through from an unknown number at 11:57 p.m. You think you've won, but I know that house better than you ever will. I forwarded it to Officer Hale immediately, adding another violation to Ron's growing list. Then I sat back and waited, watching the basement camera feed. Because I knew Ron, his ego, wouldn't let him leave those tools. That evidence, in my hands. The restraining order was just paper. But the basement door that was about to become Ron's cage. 3 nights after the restraining order, at 2:41:01. Sunday morning, the basement window alarm shrieked through the house. I jolted awake, grabbed my phone, and checked the cameras. There he was, Ron, prying at the basement window with a crowbar, the restraining order apparently meaning nothing to his desperation. I'd anticipated this. Every criminal returns to the scene, especially when evidence of their crimes awaits discovery. I activated the live stream to cloud storage and called 911, but I didn't turn on any lights. Instead, I crept to my pre-positioned spot at the top of the stairs, where I could monitor everything through my phone. The window gave way with a crack. Ron's bulky form squeezed through, dropping onto the basement floor with a grunt. He had a flashlight between his teeth, a duffel bag in one hand. He went straight for the wooden shelf, pushing it aside with practiced ease. Finally, I heard him mutter, starting to shove documents into his bag. Stupid girl thinks she can threaten me. I waited until he'd filled the bag, until he'd moved deeper into the basement to grab the most incriminating tools. Then I pressed the app button I'd tested so many times. The electromagnetic lock on the basement door engaged with a solid thunk. Ron's head snapped up. He ran to the door, yanked the handle. Nothing. Pushed against it. Solid. Then the door slammed shut on its automatic closer, the sound echoing through the house exactly as I'd imagined, and the backup mechanical lock engaged. I activated the intercom I'd installed 3 days ago, my voice filling the basement. Ron, you're trespassing on my property in violation of a restraining order. You're also being recorded on live stream committing burglary and evidence tampering. The police are already en route. You little... He threw himself against the door, the sound reverberating through the house. Open this door, I own this house. No, I said calmly through the intercom. You don't. I have the deed, the mortgage. The legal right, and now. I have you exactly where you belong, caught red-handed stealing evidence of your crimes. He pounded on the door, screaming threats that the camera captured perfectly. I'll kill you for this. You don't know what I'm capable of. Actually, I do. That's why I prepared. I held my phone steady, making sure the cloud backup was complete. Every threat you're making is being recorded and streamed directly to police servers. The sirens were getting closer. Ron tried the window, but I'd had steel bars installed on the inside after his break-in up to fire code with a release mechanism, but only accessible from outside the window. Let me out and I'll leave. I'll never come back. His voice cracked with panic. You had that chance when the judge issued the restraining order, when the police warned you, when you got out on bail. But you couldn't leave it alone, could you? You had to maintain control. The police cars pulled up, lights painting my walls red and blue. Multiple units this time. They took restraining order violations during pending criminal cases very seriously. Officer Hale's voice came through my phone. Ms. Quinn, we're at your front door. I let them in, handed over my phone with the live stream, and pointed to the basement. He broke in through the window. He's trapped in the basement with stolen goods he was trying to remove. They opened the door tactically, weapons drawn. Ron was on his knees in the middle of the basement, surrounded by evidence of his crimes, the duffel bag of incriminating documents beside him like a confession. Ron Mercer, Officer Hale announced. You're under arrest for violating a restraining order, breaking and entering, burglary, evidence tampering, and making terroristic threats. As they cuffed him, Ron looked at me with pure hatred. This isn't over. Officer Hale tightened the cuffs. Yes, it is. With these violations and the pending felony theft charges, you're looking at serious prison time. They led him out past the neighbors who'd gathered, past Vivian, who'd apparently followed him and was sobbing in her car, past the life he'd built on control and intimidation. The next morning, Detective Morrison from the Lakeford County Economic Crimes Unit called. Ms. Quinn, with the evidence you've provided and Mr. Mercer's attempted destruction of evidence caught on camera, we're filing 17 counts of felony theft, fraud, and now witness intimidation and evidence tampering. He won't be getting bail this time. I sat at my kitchen table, Maddie eating her cereal peacefully, no longer asking if the angry man would return. Is everything okay now, Mommy? She asked. Yes, sweetheart. The basement door is locked, and this time, it's locked in our favor. 3 weeks later, I got the call from Val. Ron had pled guilty to avoid trial, receiving 8 years in prison. Mercer Homeworks was pressing full charges. Vivian had filed for divorce. Cole had actually texted me an apology brief. But genuine. I stood in my basement one last time, looking at the door that had become the instrument of Ron's downfall. He'd been so obsessed with controlling this space, with owning this house, that he'd walked right into his own trap. I'd had a contractor properly clean out the basement, donating the legitimate tools to a vocational school. The space was mine now, truly mine, as was the entire house. No more fear, no more violence, no more declarations of ownership from someone who'd never truly owned anything, not this house, not my life, and certainly not my future. The basement door had indeed slammed shut, and this time, the only person trapped by it was the one who deserved it all along. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your experiences and perspectives mean everything to this community.